Good evening. It's now 6 o'clock, and I think it would be try and start promptly. We've got quite a lot of business to get through. And welcome to the two speakers who are going to join us shortly. Just wanted to welcome Councillor Mike Radcliffe back after a period of absence. It's good to see you here, and look forward to your input. I also, members will be concerned to hear that Mike Hayes, who's done a lot of the work on the local plan, has had a heart attack and will be off, absent from work for a few months. However, he's making a good recovery. So our thoughts are with him and his family.
It would be appropriate for us to send a whole block from all officers and members our good wishes and to say to him, and I have had some experience with this recently, that he does not rush to get back. It takes his time to make a full and proper recovery, because we will miss him undoubtedly. His health comes first.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. We'll do that. Thank you. Apologies.
Yes, Chair. We've received apologies tonight from Councillors Jennifer Bower, Richard Bright, Graham Elliott, Richard Fitzherbert and Vicky Massey-Bloodworth.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the rest of the agenda. This is, of course, as you will see from the agenda, is a budgetary meeting of Council, and therefore everything is financial. It's a particularly important agenda for not only for this year but the years going ahead. We've got two members of the public who would like to make representations. The first is Paul Siddle. Paul, if you could, Paul, press a button when you're ready. Yeah. And 3 minutes. I'll warn you when you had 2.5.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. To my mind at the moment, the Council does not have any permanent provision for traveller accommodation. It's also not going to have permanent provision for traveller accommodation whenever it's spent up to £1 million on the Waterloo Lane site. That site has a conditional lease. So if a bypass gets planned in the future, the question I was going to originally ask was, would the Council think it would cut through the cemetery or cut through the sewage treatment plant, or, as anybody with any local knowledge of Ashbourne knows, would it go straight through the proposed Waterloo Lane gypsy site? I'm not allowed to ask this, I'll just ask this question instead. Does the Council think that spending up to £1 million on a traveller site that cannot be described as permanent is good use of taxpayers' money when its budget has already been squeezed? And finally, Mr Rose, Council Leader, recently stated in the local press, we have no choice but to examine in the greatest detail the way we spend every penny. Can I ask how many architect firms were asked to tender for the £20,000 that was sought for the design work for Waterloo Lane to ensure the best return for the taxpayer? That's it, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for those questions, Mr Siddle. I have to admit that I can't answer the second of the question, and we will have to give you a written response to that. That's not a matter within my knowledge at this moment of time. As for the more fundamental question as to whether spending up to £1 million is good value for money on the Waterloo Lane gypsy site, given the various factors you've mentioned, I would certainly say it probably wasn't good value for money, but there is no figure there as to how much the District Council may or may not put into this. There's no figure yet as to whether there will be any monies available from other sources, be it the HCA, the government or anybody else, as to how this issue can be resolved. I think you're well aware that we have a statutory duty to do something, and we can't do nothing, and doing nothing is just not an option, so members have not got to the point where they can make that decision, and I can assure you that members will make a decision, and you know, it will depend on what the costs are and a number of other factors, but there's no guarantee that we will necessarily agree with that, but there's a lot more work to be done yet, and that work is being carried out by our officers as we speak. But I can recognise your concern and the concern of others about this issue. I think we're all concerned about trying to find the right answer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rose. Now, the second speaker, John Yowett. Again, you're familiar with the procedure. 3 minutes, and I'll tell you after 2.5. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chairman, councillors, I will keep this very brief tonight because I know this is only a small part of your much bigger and wider budget deliberations. I share the concern of Councillor Rose and others that the expenditure at Watery Lane may well prove to be fruitless. I've taken the liberty of emailing all councillors to set out the several reasons why I think officers have not advised you correctly on this. The reason for my being here tonight, Chairman, is to ask, would you please call a meeting of all relevant parties to the whole of the travellers issue? It's an issue shared between yourselves and the County Council. It's a joint venture between the two councils. Indeed, I probably shouldn't say this, but there is a strong case for councils getting together and being a unitary authority and sorting these things out possibly. So my request is, will you call a meeting of the relevant bodies before the EIP, because I'm fairly sure that the inspector will not accept the situation you're putting before him, and that it would be much better if you could come up with a workable, permanent solution, which I am completely convinced, both as a private taxpayer and as the agent for the Woodyard, I'm convinced is the right way forward for you and would save you an awful lot of money. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard, for offering once again that particular site. But I think we do know that that's been through a process, and certainly the families we are trying to house don't seem to be too keen on going there if it was available. But having said that, I do not think that calling a meeting with the County Council would either be relevant or helpful at the present time. And obviously, there's still a lot more work to be done on this subject. We have had many discussions with the County Council, and they've been extremely helpful on a number of points. So I don't think there will be a meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rose. If we can move on now, item number 3, approval of minutes from previous meeting. Councillor Wild, can we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. All those in favour? Thank you. Has anyone got any interest to declare? No. Item number 5 is leaders' announcements, and I think Councillor Rose is intending to leave those to a later point in the agenda. Item number 6, Chairman's announcements. You've got a written copy of the activities of the Chairman over the last few weeks. Have you got anything further to add?
Just that, Chair, that as you all know, the Shrovetide in Ashbourne yesterday, and had the great pleasure of introducing the turner up on Tuesday, Dr. Dallas Burton. And one of the reasons I'm speaking is basically that, talking to the Shrovetide Committee and the Chair, they were absolutely over the moon with our staff, and I think it should be congratulated. Can you make a note, a minute that my congratulations to the staff, because what people don't realise, it's not 2 days, it's 4 days, and there's a lot of workers in there. There's 600 people sat to dine each day, or just over 600, and there's a lot of workers in there, so it's congratulations to our staff there, they've done a brilliant job. The other thing I'll mention, date for your diaries, is my civic dinner is at the Ashbourne Golf Club on the 22nd of April, 7 o'clock for 7:30, £30 each.
Be very grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move on to receiving the non-exempt minutes? Thank you. Councillor Stevens, the seconder. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favour? Thank you. Question on the rule of procedure 15. I understand there aren't any, so we'll move on now to the substantive minutes, the substantive agenda items. I suppose I should have told you at the outset that all the proceeding is being filmed tonight, so it will be available both now and later on YouTube. Okay, can I hand over now for item 9, which is planning for the future, to the Chief Executive to outline the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm sure members will have realised this report and others on the agenda spells out as clearly as it can the significant financial challenge this Council is facing. Recent government announcements have meant the timetable for achieving the savings required has been significantly accelerated. By 2018-19, we need to have saved over £1 million and 1.6 million over the next 3 years if our reserves are not to be severely depleted in order to help us balance the books. Several things have contributed to this, all outside our control. The government's announcements on new homes bonus, business rate revaluations, the welfare reforms, plus the uncertainty over what the business rate retention scheme will bring. CLT have established a work programme to help us to try and secure a sustainable financial future, but it's not without risks and will require members to make some difficult and unpalatable decisions in the future. Our choices are running out. We have a lot of work to do in the next 12 to 18 months. Officers need to be given the ability and space and understanding to get on with it. I have therefore asked for delegated authority to access the General Reserve if and when needed, it might not be needed, to bring in skills that are not already within the authority and to increase capacity. But this obviously would be done in consultation with the Section 151 officer, with the leaders and the appropriate chair of the committee, and would be reported back to the next available committee. This will enable us to get on with things and not have to wait for appropriate meeting dates or call special council meetings. Additionally, the paper suggests in the late summer, early autumn, that an all-member workshop is held to discuss the strategic direction for this council. As our choices run out, we do not want to lose sight of ensuring the future prosperity of our residents and business in the Derbyshire Dales, and we need to consider seriously how this might be achieved and what our appetite for risk is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And having considered the paper, I think it would be helpful to have both and really move straight into the debate. If there's any questions that members want to raise, they can raise it in the course of the debate. Can I go to Councillor Rose?
Oh, thank you, Chairman. And I think that's probably the right way of dealing with this. But as you rightly say, there may well be questions, and I think there are. This is probably one of the most important reports we've had to relate to the Council since 1973, I would hasten to add, because I think it paints a very accurate and honest picture of the situation that this Council and, I must say, lots of other district councils throughout the length and breadth of this country are currently facing with the problems of being a lower tier authority and the general financial position that lower tier authorities find themselves in, and rural authorities seem to be in an even worse position, I regret to say, than urban authorities. So our debate on this matter is extremely important, because I do know that the Chief Executive and the whole team have given a lot of thought to this, and I'm sure will continue to give a lot of thought to this. And we are relying on them to do what they can to help us find a path through this difficult situation. But it's not without our hope. It's not doom, gloom, and let's all depart now and become a unitary authority and everything will be absolutely wonderful, because the job wouldn't be. I think we'll be even more forgotten then. So I'm no hesitation in moving the whole of the report, because I think it covers some very fundamental issues. And I think as members, this is not just the officers' problem. Good old officers, they'll sort it out. No, it's our problem. And they're here to help us, and we as members must take responsibility for supporting them and backing them up in what's going to be a difficult period with some difficult decisions that will have to be taken without any doubt in my mind whatsoever. Let me just say something about, I know this sometimes exercises members of minds about authorising officers to go and spend money. Good heavens, is all about it. This is a report that says we've got to save money, we mustn't spend money. But I think we all know that the number of staff and the poor team that we have has reduced over the years, as we face years and years of having to save £1 million here and £1 million there, and however many pounds here and there. I think many of us who've been here for a little while will know that we've been at this process for quite a long time now, and I can't see it coming to an end. And quite frankly, I'm not sure that it matters which government was in power. It would make actually any difference to the situation we face ourselves in. So, we've got to sort our own house. We've got to look for opportunities out there, and they are there. And I think when they come along, and I know, for example, Rob Coggins has been looking for opportunities, and it was sure to be reported to the Community Environment Committee that there are things that can be done which are positive, and there is money available, and we should get hold of it if we can. So I'm not sort of in a despairing mode, but I'm in a mode that says, we've got to back our team and give them the maximum support we can. So if the Chief Executive comes along to me and says, look, we've got to commission a particular piece of work to help us save money or see whether we can deal with the service in a different way, and it's going to cost us £10,000 to £25,000, then it is a good case, and I don't think our Chief Executive would put a case lightly, then we're bound to support it, because otherwise we won't be able to give it our best shot. And I'm as mean, and I know Councillor Taft and the committee chair are mean as anybody else when it comes to spending money. So it will not be done lightly, and you'll get to know. So, this is not a free-for-all, and I hope members will respect the fact that if we are going to address these very, very, very serious issues, we've really got to do something. We can't fiddle our own burns, we can't fiddle our thumbs. We've really got to take some action. And I commend our Chief Executive in the honest way that she's put this report together. She's not pulled any punches, and nor should she. There's nothing worse if we don't get to know the truth. We need to know the truth. We need to face up to it. And that's why, Chairman, I think we should try and unite politically in every sense behind our Chief Executive and the team in making progress on this issue. Because it's only if we do that we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. If we don't do that, then I think it will be very difficult. So I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Catt.
Chairman, I will second the motion and endorse everything that Councillor Rose has just said. I would like to congratulate the Chief Executive on producing what is a really first-class piece of work. This report draws together, I think, things that most of us around these tables were already aware of. There may be bits and pieces that have happened very, very late on in the day, government announcements within the course of the last few weeks, which have accelerated the need to make savings. 1.6 million in the time scale that we are looking at is an awesome challenge. But everything is there. Nothing has been held back. There are no nasties waiting around the corner. The Chief Executive has done a very good job as far as that is concerned, making sure that everybody in this room is fully informed as to the state of the Council's finances. It will be up to us to make some very difficult decisions over the coming months, and they will be the coming months, not coming years. We were expecting the Leisure Review to solve a lot of our problems when it came to the deficit, but the need to save money quicker than was originally anticipated means that those savings probably will not be enough or will come soon enough to make a difference. And so those decisions that all of us around this room will have to make will be very, very difficult indeed. Residents will notice a difference. There will be changes to frontline services. Things will cost more than they cost at the moment. And I'm afraid that is the message that is in this report. As Councillor Rose says, it isn't all gloom and doom. There is plenty of good news in there as well, and I thoroughly commend the report to you and second the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Catt. Councillor Hobson?
Chair, I take on board everything that everyone said. My only comment would be that authorising expenditure of up to £25,000 a time with no limit to the number of times seems to be quite a large amount, particularly after discussions about the state of our financial health. I would hope that there will be appropriate checks and balances on this. It's public money that we're talking about, so thank you.
I think, Chair, I quite understand where Councillor Mrs Hobson's coming from. There will be obviously checks and balances through the leader, the chairman of the appropriate committee, and indeed the Section 151 officer. And I can assure you the Section 151 officer will not let us spend money lightly. And so I think the checks and balances will be there. And I really hope we don't have to call on it. The other major checks and balances at every available council meeting, if we have had to dip into it, councillors will be told. And at that stage, you can stop us. It's your decision any time. So we will keep you well informed.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Radcliffe?
Thank you, Chair. I too echo the comments that have been made by the leader and deputy leader regarding both this report that has been written by Dorcas and indeed the position that the council finds itself in through no fault of its own. It is a very clear and frank account of the challenges that we are going to face over the coming years, set in place through no fault of our own. Can I assure the Council that you will have the support of the opposition when it comes to protecting the services that we are able to maintain, and indeed the working of this council that we value as much as anyone. However, I think there are things to be done alongside that. And one of them, it seems to me, is to get out a message to the public that this situation has been reached through no fault of our own. This is a result from year-on-year cuts and reductions in council funding. It's this that is impacting upon our service delivery. And incidentally, I'm sure we all recognise that those service deliveries from the county, the district, and indeed from town and parish councils is generally all lumped together in the public's mind. And what that public are facing more and more is a cumulative effect on service deliveries, whether it be in terms of our own waste management, or whether it be highways from the county, or something more parochial from the town and parishes. Everything is being undermined as a result of the funding reductions. So I would make a plea to this council, when it comes to the time when we start to send out the literature for our precepts and council tax, please put some publicity out there that both gives an honest appraisal of what our service users are going to experience over the next few years, but make it clear why this has come about. Can I ask perhaps also a question that does arise, I think, as a result of reading this report, that is perhaps almost the elephant in the room, the unthinkable question. And that is, if we are facing a reduction in services year on year, at what point do we cease to effectively function as a service provider? And is it not, are we not coming to a point where more and more we should be thinking strategically about a future possibility that sees us amalgamating or joining with another authority in order simply to survive and to make those service provisions that, of course, are expected by residents. I think that's all I have to say at this moment, other than to say that clearly this report sets the tone and is a compilation, if you like, of the threads that will run further in the other reports that we are going to be considering this evening.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Wilde.
Yes, I fully support this report, and I agree with everything that's been said. Particularly welcome the members' workshop, and I think that's going to be very important for us to work with officers and to get all the information that we need going forward. And I would urge every single member to make sure that they attend that workshop. Thank you.
Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's following on the same theme. I fully endorse the report and I shall be supporting it. And we've already run one members' workshop, and there is an enormous amount of business and life and work experience in this room, and I think we should be drawing on it. I've just made a brief list. We've got soldiers and ex-soldiers, we've got policemen, ex-policemen, we've got lawyers, we've got accountants, we've got publicans, we've got engineers. And to that end, we should be drawing on that expertise to support the officers. We've already run, as I say, one workshop, and I will be happy to volunteer to facilitate the next workshop in order to bring all those skills and talents together. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Slack.
Thank you, Chair. One aspect I would have liked to see in this report is probably to come about with the members' workshop, is that we are restricted by council tax how much we can raise, but parish councils aren't. And probably some of the services could be taken over by parish councils to give us a breathing space. So I think it's an avenue we should be looking at and trying to encourage to get our parish councils to put their precept up a little bit more and take some of the workload off us. It might be in the members' workshop, we'll probably discuss it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Burley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I echo exactly what Councillor Woolley said. There is a lot of talent in this room, and as Councillor Rose says, we're a family. We should be asked to help. Don't just rely on officers. I'm not saying you can't do the job officers, but I think that where there's a need and there's a will, there's a way. My main concern is the staffing issue, and we've heard sadly tonight about my case. So I echo Councillor Ratcliffe's sentiments that we should go to him. So there is a weakness there, and I hope and I'm sure that the Chief Exec will monitor pressures that come within all departments, because there is a factor that gets into one's blood at one time, and that is that the daily grind gets to you. So I think that needs to be monitored closely. Picking up on Councillor Slack's point, I've actually written down here parish council expectations. I don't think we should just publicise to the public. I think we should specifically target the parish councils and let them have sight of what we've had sight of tonight and put them on notice that we district councillors now are in a very difficult position to answer their needs. So I think that they need to be appraised of this and made aware, and hope that they can help us as well.
Councillor Baton.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to talk about the workshop. I welcome that workshop and the input that the members can put into that workshop and hearing from the officers. And I realise that the officers are going to be working very hard and using consultancies as well. But do the proposals to make the cuts of up to 25%, which will have significant implications on residents and on this council, including leaving us open to liability, need perhaps immediate priority for debate rather than waiting until the autumn?
Officers are still looking at the 10 and 25% cuts on budgets. What we've done so far is looked at all the budget headings and said, what impact will that have if we cut that budget by 10% or by 25%? And we're still working on that, and that work will continue this year. We can certainly address it at the workshop and let you know where we are. We wouldn't make any of those cuts anyway without coming back to members with the implications and your agreement or not as to whether we take them forward. But we can certainly update you on where we are in that work, in exploring that particular avenue.
Thank you. Councillor Flitter.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I agree with Councillor Rose. This happens every single year that we come to this meeting. We're faced with the same problems, and we have to work together, and that's what this council has always done. Every single member of this council, regardless of politics, have worked together to get the council in where it is today. I tend to believe that we ceased to be a service provider some years ago, and we were told that we were going to be an enabler. And that is becoming more apparent now than ever before. I've listened to the comments about the parish and town councils, and one that's going through that at the moment and examining staff structures and the way. Pretty proud to say that Matlock Town Council has frozen their council tax this year, and just like to remember people that if you pass responsibilities down, then you've got to take that funding with it, because they cannot keep going to the taxpayer, because we're finding that every single time. But I do welcome the chance to have an input on where we can make savings, but it's going to be a very difficult task and there's no easy way out. So I shall give my full support to this report.
Councillor Pauling?
Yes, I also support this report and recommend it as good reading to anybody who happens to be in a town council and parish council position, because I think they need to know about it. You can just see by how many there are here tonight exactly how unaware of the situation they seem to be. Otherwise I think they'd be here to try and listen to what we've got to say. But putting that to one side, I want to come back to Councillor Purdy's point about staffing issues, because as Dorcas knows, I've been worried for months about picking up the phone or emailing to try and get something done in case I'm putting too much pressure on people. Now we seem to be in an even more difficult position, and it's going to get worse. I wonder how we go about this. Are we supposed now to be frank with members of the public who demand immediate responses and say they're not going to get them? Is that what we're going to have to do now? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, could I return now to Councillor Rose?
Well, I think we seem to be all sort of saying the same thing, Chairman, so there's no need for me to reiterate them. But I do think that Councillor Ratcliffe, in his usual style, and he's certainly not lost that during his period of being off from the council, has put his finger on one of the elephants in the room, and I can mention two more when I give my budget speech, about, what is the future? Where do local authorities go? Is it a question of replacing them with unitary authorities? Is it a question of entering into alliances with neighbouring authorities? And I think I would personally prefer looking at that type of option if it comes to that, and I don't think it's reached that point yet, rather than sort of entering into some sort of beauty competition where we all disappear into some unknown unitary authority in the sky of unknown proportions, unknown size, and probably very urban dominated. I've never really seen that as a solution for Derbyshire Dales, so we will have to see. But I think we need to be optimistic, and as everybody has agreed, we need to work together. And I think the members' workshop, when we can fix a date, will be very important, because I think it will give us an opportunity to have an even more frank debate about issues and the two avenues, and I'm sure it'll be a useful opportunity for officers to test members' reactions to the sort of proposals that they're likely to formulate. So I'm glad that we are in agreement in moving this ahead in the way that the Chief Executive has recommended, and I have every confidence in her and all the office team in doing their level best to find the right solutions for it. But as I said, and other members have reiterated, we're all in it together. And I know that comes from a sort of political adverse at one stage, and I have no intention of being political on something as serious as this. But clearly, Councillor Fisher said it, we're a family, and therefore we work as a family, and as Derbyshire Dales has done in the past, that has been our best method of finding a solution rather than having a great row about it, which achieves absolutely nothing.
Thank you. Matters have been moved and seconded. Can I move to a vote? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Now, item number 10, Capital Programme 2016-17 to 2021. Can I hand over to the Head of Resources to introduce the statement?
Thank you, Chair. In this report, we're asking members to approve the revised capital programme for 2016-17 to 2021, as shown in Appendix 1 to the report. We've only added one new scheme, and that's for £10,000 for the design of the traveller site, which was approved at the last council meeting. Other changes to the programme reflect slippage of incomplete schemes into the new financial year. I'd like to draw members' attention to Appendix 2, which shows potential future liabilities that we haven't yet included in the capital programme. These total £666,000, but this doesn't include potential costs for the traveller site or for possible works at Lovers Walk, Matlock Bath. Paragraph 1.6.2 of the report explains that when these potential future liabilities have been taken into account, the capital receipts and capital reserves that we'll have left will total just over £1 million. And we need that to address the traveller site, if we go ahead, works to the rock faces in Matlock Bath, if they're required, any possible overspends on current schemes, and any unforeseen events. Finally, Appendix 3 of the report sets out the prudential indicators and minimum revenue provision statement, which we're asking members to approve. These help to demonstrate that the capital programme is affordable, prudent and sustainable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I move straight to Councillor Rose?
For the questions, Sharon. But putting on one side the issues members may have about traveller sites and issues of that nature, you know, I think it's a very healthy, in the circumstances, capital programme. And if you look on page 19 at the proposed capital expenditure that we're being asked to look at, you know, affordable housing once again is out there in the lead, and that remains one of our very important priorities, because it seems to me that unless we're willing to help these schemes go ahead, they're not going to happen. And Rob's done some very good work on that, which will be reported shortly to the C&E committee. So I think it's not a bad capital programme. It won't be perfect for everybody, I realise that. There are always some schemes that people would like to see in the list, but I think we've covered most areas. And Karen has made it quite clear, and I want to make it quite clear, that, you know, when it comes to the difficult topics of traveller sites and expenditure, you know, this isn't being decided tonight. You're not committing yourself to anything we can. That's got to come back to the council with all the facts in front of you, and then a decision can be made. That's what I said in my answer earlier. So whatever it might say on your telegraph, it's not sort of a done deal by any means. There's a lot of work to be done and a lot of consideration to be given to it, and to these other issues that Karen has rightly highlighted. So it's a positive capital programme. I think we must look at it that way. And you know, there will be some good work done over the next year or so, which, you know, we can be proud of. So don't be too despondent. I'd like to move the recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Kerr?
I thoroughly agree with all of that, Chair. This is a somewhat better and more optimistic report than the one we've just looked at. And again, just like the one before, it tends to draw together a number of issues, all of which have been in one way or another put before us, either at full council or within the committees. So I will second the motion.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I've got a couple of questions for Rob, housing team. But before that, I'd just like to pay tribute to the work that they do. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, the way they're finding these sites, you know, and finding the money for them and making them go forward. So it is disappointing when we can sort of read at 1.51 that a couple of these schemes have actually had to be removed and withdrawn. So I would like to ask Rob, you know, the reasons why the Bonsall and the EAM schemes have had to be withdrawn.
And the other question is, could you tell me what's the current balance in the Affordable Housing Capital Fund?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sure members that are on the planning committee will be familiar with the issues we've had at Bonsall. It's difficult because in some parishes you'll know that residents are either for a scheme or against, and those against schemes can mobilise themselves quite effectively and put resources into challenging decisions of the council and the planning committee. Those events in themselves can delay when the scheme might start because of legal challenge. And while we might be successful in legal challenge, landowners' views on bringing a scheme forward can change over time, and that's been the case in Bonsall. In the case of Eam, we've done some work with the parish council and tried to help work with them to bring a scheme forward, but there was little interest at the time to do that. So without a willing parish council, without an identified site, it was difficult to take that scheme forward as well. So you'll realise from the programme that resources that are released from those schemes we would look to reinvest in other opportunities through the reserve. I think just looking at the report, there is a table which summarises positions of the capital programme in 1.6.1. So just under at the top of page 20, you'll see how the Section 106 contributions pan out towards 2021. Those Section 106 contributions come from private sector developments, and we can use those to help fund affordable housing schemes within the Derbyshire Dales local plan area.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jenkins.
Just a couple of questions, possibly one for Rob. On the, can I just ask the disabled facilities grants? I noticed the disabled facilities grants, I noticed they are reducing to a degree. Is that because it's primarily providing disabled adaptation to old buildings, or is it disabled adaptation into new buildings or houses where people have become disabled in the course of time?
Okay, well, disabled facilities grants are one of the housing issues that falls to the environmental health team in their private sector housing role. The reason it's not so much a decrease in the grant budget that you see here as a massive increase in the year that we're just finishing. What happened is nationally the government put about double the money into the disabled facilities grant programme across the whole of the country, and our allocation went from 239,000 to 416. That coincides with a different way of allocating the money or distributing the money through the Better Care Fund, where instead of government handing the money direct to district councils, they hand it tied up in a bunch of other NHS and county council money to Derbyshire County Council, who then redistribute it. So there's been a lengthy ongoing conversation about the passporting of that money. To be absolutely fair to the County Council, they've committed to funding next year for our first quarter allocation, even though they haven't had the money from government themselves. So we are working quite well with them. What we don't know at the moment is how much next year's allocation is actually going to be. When we do, we'll be speaking to Karen about updating the capital programme accordingly.
And sorry, the other question I know that this year and I think next year we're going to be spending about £1 million on vehicle renewal, and then that budget drops to about, I think, 170,000. What's the timescale when that £1 million will have to be spent again? What is the sort of the rotation of vehicle renewal? Is it a 10-year cycle, or is it a... Do you see what I'm getting at?
That one. The vehicle renewal programme, we look at each vehicle individually, assess its useful life, and we build up the reserve based on that. So groups of vehicles, for example, the gully empties, we use an 8-year life. Other vehicles have a lower life. But before we replace them at the end of that life, we do take a check to decide whether they really do need to be replaced, and quite often we'll keep them on a bit longer.
Yeah, it's because I just see it as a potential sort of booby trap in that we're going to be spending £1 million this year and next year, and we're forecasting for the next 3 years to spend about 300,000. I was just wondering what the potential was for that to become £1 million again in another 3 years.
There is the potential to get to that stage in the future. if we keep all the vehicles that we've got now. But you'll remember from the medium-term financial strategy that came in November that we are putting £150,000 a year into the vehicle replacement reserve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin Burfoot.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 24 on the tables, it says on market towns and then a clean and safe district. Safe, I think, being the operative word in the case of one particular project. And just to remind Councillor Rose, it's not a pet project of mine. I think it's an absolutely essential project, and that's the one at Sparrow Park, Henry Avenue in Matlock, where three families, certainly two families at the moment, it could be three because the problem is extending along the row of houses, are being put to totally unnecessary and undeserved stress, and in one case even illness because of the problems of the water coming through the retaining wall, which could be put at risk as well, which could make the £20,000 estimated cost quite small in comparison to what might be required if the whole of the retaining wall collapsed. So I'd ask officers if they can give the utmost priority to dealing with this serious problem. I think it's completely unacceptable that residents should be put to such inconvenience for as long as 15 months before any action is taken. So I think emergency action is needed quite seriously now, not in about another 6 months' time. Because one particular resident has been wanted to sell her property, and she can't even put it on the market because of the state of the property and the water flowing down, including soil from her garden towards her front door, and that's now extended to the second property, one of her neighbour's properties, and I think that's got to be dealt with fairly urgently. So I just ask that officers will take that into account and take action very soon. Thank you.
Can I ask Mr Wilson to respond to that now, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Councillor Burfoot's aware that there are significant officer resources being put into this particular issue in terms of investigations and joint work with the County Council. But it's not so straightforward to suggest that the District Council would be liable totally for this particular problem. It would be wrong to assume that. There are legal considerations involved, and those are currently being evaluated. And as soon as the District Council is in a position to understand precisely what our obligations will be, then that matter will come back before members.
Thank you. Councillor Burney.
Thank you. I'll be brief because Councillor Furness has picked up the point that I was going to raise with regard to the two affordable schemes, one in my ward, Monsell. I'm grateful to Isabel for replying to me and giving an update. Very quickly, Rob, as I see it, I think it's now dependent on the landowner because they've gone to judicial review twice. So would the monies from the housing associations be lost altogether, or will they recover?
Yes, so the scheme is financed through two routes, our contribution from the District Council and the Housing Association. The Housing Association, I'm sure, would be keen to support a future scheme if it is secure, and the government have added flexibility to the Homes and Community Agency funding, so they can now go back again for rented units in the future. So we'll always obviously keep the door open and pursue any opportunities that might arise on the site, but at the moment we have to draw a line underneath it, I'm afraid.
Councillor Mike Ratcliffe.
Thank you again, Chair. The points about affordable housing have been made, well made, and I'm pleased to see that they continue to be well served in the capital programme. Our record is second to none in this general area of the country, and deservedly so. I have to say, though, that it is unfortunate that the financial forecasts referred to in the previous report again have threads through again this programme, which I have to say, rather sadly, reflects the diminution of our creative spending over the last number of years, so that essentially the core of this programme is very much about maintenance and repair and keeping things afloat and going, I have to say. I note particularly in your comments, Karen, your points about the availability of capital to deal with things that are not necessarily directly included. And can I make the plea, particularly about the Travellers site and the rock faces at Matlock Bath, that we complete those needs costs just as soon as possible, so that the monies can be set aside out of this balance of 1.08 million. Otherwise, I can see that there may well be unforeseen events that eat into that, and it has to be reiterated again and again that the Travellers site is a legal inclusion that we have to fulfil wherever it goes, so the monies must be properly apportioned. Can I ask you a very specific point of clarification on something that I didn't quite follow? In the year-on-year figures, there are substantial amounts set aside for vehicle replacements. In 2016-17, nearly £500,000 is being utilised, although there are vehicle reserves to offset that. In 2017-18, that figure increases to a phenomenal 619,000, although again there are some reserves. It has to be noted, incidentally, that IT reserves during that period faces a significant reduction. But in 2018-19, these expenditures on vehicle replacement dramatically reduced by 50% to 330k, but there appears to be no reserves. Have I read this correctly? And what's the sort of general explanation behind it? Is it one of inflation, first of all, that has made the figures rise so much?
The vehicle expenditure relates to the time when we estimate those vehicles that we've got now will need to be replaced. So some vehicles last longer than others, some cost more than others. So the large increases you see now are because we're due to replace big vehicles like the gully hunches in these early years. Later, only small vehicles like vans are due for renewal, so that's why it goes down a lot. And we do generally try to build up the vehicle renewals reserve to fund all the vehicle replacements.
Do we have any hire vehicles within our vehicle stock, or are they all such that we have to, we're responsible?
We do lease some vehicles from the County Council, mainly for the Highways Agency contract and for cleansing.
Councillor Flitter?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I say it every year, but I am amazed that we've still got a capital programme. And I think that's due to the excellent financial team that we have at this council. But I'm just looking at Appendix 2 and the potential future liabilities of this council, and noting what we've just been discussing and the cutbacks that we've had to make. I'd just like to ask a question about this town hall. This building is the replacement of windows, metal windows. I can't just recall what the 2014 survey said, the condition survey said, but £210,000 on replacing windows at a time of austerity and cutbacks. I'm just wondering whether we've prioritised any of these items that you've got in Appendix 2.
Do you want to respond to that, Karen?
We have the conditions survey done in 2014, and it identified lots of work that was required at the town hall. There were things to do with boilers, there was replacement of the wooden windows, and there was this item for replacement of the metal windows. Originally we included it in the capital programme, but as time went by and we realised that our resources were depleted, we took this item out of the capital programme. But we left it on this list so that it wouldn't be overlooked. And as you say, it is a lower priority. That's why it's on this list rather than in the programme.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pooley?
Yes, I wanted to come ask a question about technology. Obviously, with the way technology moves at the moment, we could be saving quite a lot of in the future if we invest in technology now. I'm asking, the question really is, are we going to be able to do that?
We have got an Office Technologies Reserve that we use for funding things like the new switchboard that we're considering. And it's also got sufficient in to maintain the current laptops and things like that. We've used it, as members know, to finance part of the EDMS that we've just invested in. So it's certainly sufficient at the moment.
Councillor Millwood?
Thank you, Chair. This is probably the wrong time to bring this up, the day after Shrovetide, but potential future liabilities. Fishpond Meadow car park in Grasgreaves. At the moment it looks more like a plough field than a car park, but I do think that for a year or two now this scheme has wanted to be done. We're asking the public to come on there and use that as overspill car park and charging them for it, and I really do think that this scheme should be put into the draft programme.
Thank you. Councillor Stack?
Thank you, Chair. On Appendix 1, on page 23, just looking at Dale's Housing garage sites, I'm quite amazed to see that it's a different site. Where I live, opposite where I live, there's a site where there was 4 to 5 garages taken down, quite a big site, and it's 2 years ago now they took all the garages away, Dale's Housing, and I were expecting a planning application to come along, but it's never happened. And I just wondered why these garage sites aren't being used more by Dale's Housing. It's a question really for Dale's Housing, and Rob probably can have input into it. Why aren't they using these sites?
Rob, have you got any insight?
I'll do my best, Chair. Yeah, I think garage sites are difficult because of the maintenance and you've got very low rent. So in many cases, I think it become a liability because of the condition of the units and the rental income. In the district, we've been working with Dale's Housing to take out some of those garage units and build houses on them where that's feasible. That depends on the development capacity of Dale's Housing at the time. And obviously they've needed our support to help bring forward, I think it's almost 13 units over this year and next. But I'm sure we're working with them to bring forward any more assets that they might have, which includes garage sites in the future.
Can I just go back? Yeah, this particular site's completely cleared now. There's no garages whatsoever. It's been cleared over 2 years and nothing's happened at all. I wonder if you could take and ask them about this site. It's on Chapel Lane, Middleton.
We'll make direct inquiries.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rose, have you got any more comments? Been moved and seconded. Can we move to the vote now? All in favour?
Just before you move, Chair, can I say that as we voted for this item, but wanted recording that does not include the traveller's side.
Yes. Thank you. We'll make a note of that. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. We now move to item 11. Just remind members that item 11 and 12 will be a recorded vote. Just to give you warning of that. Item number 11, Service Plans and Revenue Budget 2017-18. Can I hand it to Councillor Rose?
Well, this is the one occasion of the year where, officers have written the report, but it's for me as leader of the council to move what they have recommended, and clearly what I will be recommending to you tonight. So it's not my intention to speak for too long, because I think we can all gather from the previous debates at the beginning of the meeting that a council tax rise of £5 for a Band D property is almost unavoidable. So I hope members will share my view that the recommendations put forward by Karen and the team could be supported. And as before, they put a lot of hard work into the preparation of this important information and detail. And on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank her and her colleagues, because Karen will be the first to admit that this is a team effort for doing what they do every year, year in and year out and throughout the year. But the truth is, as members have read, we're expected to increase our council tax bill by £5, because our settlement from the government makes that assumption. And this time there's no offer from the government to offer to freeze council tax, as was the case last year. Now, I realise that this is our second increase in 7 years, and I'll put it in that context, because for 5 years prior to 2016-17, we froze council tax in the Dales, which was no means achievement. But inflation rates and the cost of providing services over that 7-year period actually bears no comparison to this relatively modest request. And it only goes to prove that we work hard to reduce costs and make savings in many ways, as well as increasing income to help balance our books. The debate we just had on our Chief Executive report, Planning for the Future, clearly demonstrates why we have to seek this increase, but I do not need to go over that ground again. We can't ignore the significant changes which have led us to seeking an increase this year, and these are mentioned in paragraph 2.3 of the report. And amongst others, we can see the 20% reduction in the settlement funding assessment, the reduction of £77,000, which is 19% in the Rural Services Delivery Grant, although one has to say that's better than the provisional figure we got last year, which was £99,000, and then was increased to £398,702, thanks to the work of SPARC. So there's still some part recognition that rural authorities need extra help, but sometimes it's difficult to believe that. And also, more significantly, in my opinion, the reduction of £221,000, i.e. 22% of the new homes bonus, with money going to the Better Care Fund, which means that it is supporting the social care budget, which we do not benefit from. I realise that others do, so I'm being selfish about it. Now, I've not been afraid from time to time to criticise governments of any political colour when they have not treated district councils fairly, or ignored the extra cost of providing services in sparse rural areas such as ours. And I give credit to SPARC for making it so clear, and you'll see that in paragraph 2.5 of the report, as to how rural areas in particular have been worse hit than urban areas, even though our costs are greater. Now, we need to continue to lobby the government to make it clear to our MP in particular that rural areas like ours need to be properly recognised as those extra costs are incurred. Now, Councillor Ratcliffe mentioned elephants in the room, and I'll mention 2 of my own. Now, social care, I think we're all terribly familiar with this very important debate, which affects the whole nation, and the fact that clearly there does not seem to be enough money to resolve this problem. I've been on a recent conference with some of my colleagues. It's quite clear that the upper tier authorities who have benefited from our loss of new homes bonus to go into the social care fund actually feel that isn't the right answer. It's just robbing Peter to pay Paul, effectively. There has to be a more fundamental answer to this question, and I'm sure everybody will agree that the government really does need to address it. I'm not going to say how, because that's not my job, but it does need to be looked at. Again, it's not going to go away, this problem, and I think we all know it's not going to go away, and those of us in the I think the Chief Executive reminded me about this the other day. There was in the baby boom era, you know, approaching sort of an age when, you know, who knows what we might need. So perhaps I'm speaking for selfish reasons. I'm sure nobody else in the room faces the same dilemma. They're all much younger. So Dorcas has made it clear there's no room for complacency, and we all know that the amount we receive in future years continues on its downward trend. This means we have to put into finding savings. The effort we have to put into finding savings must have the necessity to continue in earnest. We need to ask these questions all the time. Do we need to provide this service? Can it be provided better by others? Can we improve it ourselves? Can we work in partnership with others to provide this service? The other element of the room, which I almost forgot to mention, and Dorcas touched on this, is of course business rate retention. We just do not know how that is going to work out, and whether rural districts like ours are going to be treated or fairly or unfairly. Bearing in mind that we actually collect more business rates in from our district than we actually receive by way of business rate grant, you know, that is a factor we need to consider. So nothing is sacrosanct when it comes to looking at our services, and I'll mention just a few to get everybody sort of excited. Public conveniences, discretionary rate relief. I read the other day that some councils have actually started to take away the 10% relief that's given to charity shops because, you know, should they have a 10% discretionary relief? Some town centres are actually dominated by charity shops in some towns, and these are the sort of areas that we and certainly others may have to explore. I'm not necessarily saying that's the case, but these are the sort of things that Dorcas touched on in her report. And of course, markets and their future is another issue. Or charging car parking in car parks which have previously been free, never an easy debate. Or charging for green waste collection, never an easy debate, but they're all the sort of decisions we face. Now, the ongoing reviews have to ask all these questions and will continue to do so. The Leisure Review puts into very sharp focus, as it is our costliest and largest non-statutory service, and the Council have already embarked on fundamental changes to how they are delivered. If this review is to make the savings that we hope it will, then we will have to look very carefully at the specification, and I'm very well aware that this is exactly what Paul Ash and their colleagues will be doing, and trying to juggle that with the public's expectations. So good luck. I think we said that last week at the special meeting with CNE. The reports before you set out the future financial position of the Council very clearly, and I consider that we are all very familiar with what we have to do. But I would like to thank all the staff for what they have done and what they are doing on our behalf to achieve these objectives in more and more difficult circumstances. It really could not be done without them. And Appendix 5 shows what they have said so far in Council's administration service, the unsung heroes of Sandra's department, not always appreciated, Sandra, but it is noted you have made good savings. Discretionary grants are mentioned in other areas. Despite this, the public may or may not expect more and want us to maintain the excellent level of services we provide, and we will do our best to do so for the time being. But with the expectation of further grant reductions and other changes highlighted in the report and in Dorcas' report, it really does make it clear, this was touched on in the earlier debate, that fundamental changes will have to be made. But we are doing some good things. Let's just remind ourselves that it's not all doom and gloom. Hopefully with the local plan, despite its many difficulties and challenges, is of course to be examined in public in May this year, and fingers crossed, may we get to the point where we have an adopted local plan. That would be a relief, I think, to all concerned. We've replaced our car park ticket machines. I hope they continue to work efficiently after a few teething problems, but at least they are more efficient and should enhance our income. We still have an active economic development set of objectives, and we continue to beaver away at all sources, including European funding while it is still available. But we won't go into that debate. Clearly, that would set hairs running, but I can say from the leader funding, we've now got over 100 applications being processed, and I'm very confident that the £2.3 million in the Peak District will help a lot of businesses and provide quite a few jobs. It already has. Our own local project fund is up and running and is proving very popular with members in their local communities. But even this will have to be looked at carefully. We still have an ambitious capital programme, which we've touched on, which is fully funded at the moment. But any additional demands can only be met by taking out items which have been committed or not committed, as the case may be. The Council's ambition to help provide more affordable homes for local residents forms a substantial part of this programme and demonstrates all concerned the Council puts its money where its mouth is. So our aims really remain the same, to keep Dales one of the best performing small rural districts in England for as long as we can, to continue to punch above our weight, to continue to give value for money and do, as it seems, more for less, to maintain as many frontline services as we can, but in doing so, it is our duty as members to take responsibility for our decisions. They are not officer decisions, they are decisions. And we need to explain them and make this to our constituents and to our parish council when the need arises. And the need is arising. Despite all the many challenges that face us, let's continue to work together as we have in the past to achieve these important aims. Chairman, I'd like to move the whole of the recommendation on page 31. I formally move.
Thank you very much. Councillor Camm.
Well, as one baby boomer to another. There's nothing more to add. I think Councillor Rose has summed up the situation perfectly. And I can't add any more to that. So I will simply second the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe.
Yes, Police Chair, if you would allow me. I mean, we are where we are, and we all know really how we've got there as well. However, that's no reason not to go down without making some protests. Councillor Rose has given us a very, very good appraisal of this report and excellently given a very good evaluation of all its content too. The one thing I've always admired in Councillor Rose as a leader is that despite his political allegiances, he is always in there fighting for Derbyshire Dales and its rural communities. We seem to be up against a mentality from the government that one size fits all, not recognising that service deliveries in rural areas costs more. The other thing I can't quite get my head around is this interference in business rates. There's a move to allow us to take on, eventually, the business rate income to offset the loss of funding provision from other sources, seems to me in direct contradiction to the revaluations that are going to be carried out that will inevitably impact upon these small businesses, thereby often driving them out of business, so that the ultimate outcome for us will be a reduction in the amount that we can gain from them. It seems to me a totally skewed approach if you want to encourage businesses to flourish. And I know that attention to creating businesses is going to be one of our economic priorities for the next few years. So if we are having a recorded vote, I will certainly place my support here, and I'm also quite available, Councillor Rose, should you wish to send a letter to the government. You can count on my signature there alongside yours.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think the whole debate tonight has set the scene for this discussion. I certainly find it unpalatable that we have got to raise council tax, but I don't see an option. Knowing what we have to save and the way that we want to protect frontline services, I really don't see an option or another avenue that we can take. I do disagree with Councillor Rose on one point, and that is that I don't believe that the public expect us to raise council tax. They expect us to run the services as best we can, and that is becoming increasingly difficult. What upsets people is that we seem to be paying our taxes over and over again for the same service to other individual authorities. You know, we pay the government the tax out of our income, we pay tax on our savings, we have to pay the county council, the police, the fire. Everything accumulates that it becomes an unnecessary burden on people, because if we can't provide a service, then somebody else more local, and I'm going again at town and parishes, they are trying to pick up the other end to try and provide for their local communities, and it's becoming impossible. So we've got an impossible task, and I don't see any other option, and so therefore I shall also be supporting this motion tonight.
Councillor Slack?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I shall be supporting the motion as well. Just something I'd like to pick up on. I think it was mentioned about charity shops having a 10% discount. Most of the charity shops are in town centres, obviously, and if you look at town centres today, all you get is charity shops, restaurants, antique shops. All the big stores are now moved out of town stores, and this is modern shopping today. They just drive out to the big stores, Argos and so forth. And but people do go into town, especially to mingle around antique shops and charity shops and restaurants, and it draws them into town. I think taking this 10% away from charity shops would be a retrograde step, because the charities are performing supporting the country really in many ways, and supporting charities, various charities. So I would be against taking this 10% away from charity shops. I think they provide a service in the town centre which the shops would be empty if they didn't take them. So it's just my point of view on this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Monks?
Well, I too shall be supporting the bill. I know we have to. But I know our constituents are going to have a real shock this time, because ours is going up. I'm sure county will be going up. Police, ambulance will be going up. I know with Hathersage, they're just taking on a £200,000 loan to rebuild the lavatories there. So that precept is going to be going up enormously. So it is going to be a big shock for people living in our area, and I suppose communication is the best way of trying to explain to people, but it is going to be very hard.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pawley?
Yes, I'd like to refer to a statement in 8.5 of this report, which says that however, given the scale of the required savings, it's inevitable there will be impact on frontline services and residents. Now, what we're going to have to do, which I mentioned earlier when I was talking about having to explain why things weren't going to happen as quickly as they did before, as members we're going to have to explain the difficulties that we're in. And I don't think just as a set of people who are representing residents and traders in the district, we're going to be able to do that sufficiently. I feel very, very concerned about parish council and town council participation in this. They don't seem to understand where this is going, as if they live a life alone. And I wonder if we could, in some way as a council, take this forward, making sure that perhaps through workshops, it's no good trying to do it through the local forum route, because they just don't turn up, same as, this evening. There's no one here. I wondered if we could have workshops to explain just exactly where they are and just how that's going to affect them. And then taking it on from there, although I know it's not something I like to think about, but we are not going to be able to give the services that we were giving before. And perhaps we could work in cooperation with them to see if there is anything they can pick up that we can't offer. Because we have got this upper limit on the amount that we can put our council tax out, but they haven't. So perhaps there will be things they can pick up. And I wondered if we could cooperatively with them see if there was any avenue that we could pursue to do that so residents don't suffer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we can certainly look at working at some event with the parishes. We used to run an annual parish conference, and we could certainly look at doing that again this year and making this the focus of that conference.
Can we move to Councillor Jenkins, please?
Okay, it's a bit controversial. I am not going to vote for this because I can't say that I am a old-fashioned, low-tax, small government conservative and then vote for year-on-year tax rises. I think that people feel that all of the world's problems are constantly pushed down the line into their doorstep, and I think actually a freeze would say that we are sharing the burden with our electorate. Thank you.
Councillor Purdy.
Before I come on to the reason I asked to speak, I'd like to pick up on that comment. Councillor Jenkins, we had a freeze for a number of years, and I think it's left us with a bigger hole in the bucket. I just want to, I'm not looking for brownie points, please, I'm not, but I just want to back up something I said at last full council meeting and pick up on Councillor Ratcliffe's point about writing to the government. I said at the last council meeting we ought to write to the MP. I did write to our MP. I have got a response, but I'd just like to make a plea to all councillors. Our voice needs to be outside of this chamber. So, as champions of our wards and society, I think we all want to make a voice through letters to individual MPs of government.
Thank you, Councillor Purdy. Councillor Irene Ratcliffe.
Well, I think you certainly made me speak, which I didn't feel. I thought everybody was speaking really well and whatever, and I think they're all challenging. But I could not let this meeting go by saying that that is absolutely the worst thing you could do in terms of keeping it low. Keeping it value for money, keeping it competitive, but nobody can do better things than local government authorities. 20 years I've sat around this table, and I know that that is right. And we have to protect our services. And if you're comfortably sitting in your home while others aren't, and that they require public services that are really important. And we play our part as a district council with all the other agencies. To see what is happening is a loss that we will not recover from unless we do speak out as councillors. And I don't mean that we shouldn't have a debate about it. But for me, I have really tried to work collectively. And I'll give you 3 incidents. Yesterday, there was a site visit with a charity, with district councillors and officers with the parish council, looking at the vision that we want, but what they want and how they worked. It's inspiring to be part of that, but they couldn't do it without this council or another council. I tell you, they wouldn't, because the private sector won't pick it up. And yet we're also working with those, the traders, etc. I also, the day before, worked with 2 farmers who, because we discussed the problems, they are helping clear drains ready for our council here to blast them out and clean them so that they don't get flooded, that they have safer roads, that when the cold weather comes we don't get black ice. That to me is inspiring. One farmer was a parish councillor, the other one was a landowner, and they offered to help in other authorities as well. So I think that that is really something. Tomorrow there will be people at one of the stations making better access, improving environments, because we have enabling parish council. Cromford Parish Council adopted the station. They looked at giving money and helping and taking on the idea of self-help in order for us to work. So please do not say, we enable people to do it, which I think is very important, but we would not be able to do it. And I don't think anybody that I've worked with without that help. And so I think that it is very difficult, particularly when you can't afford to put a roof over your head to pay the rates as well. But we are talking about having discretionary, concessionary aspects within the budget. Really, to say that the state has no part, local government state, I don't know why you're sitting around the table.
Thank you very much. Councillor Rose, would you like to say a few words to wrap up the debate before we vote?
Read it back, but not at length. Councillor Jenkins is always entitled to his own opinion. It's not my matter. But there we are. I just want to say something about Parish Council, because I know we've been focusing on that in the earlier debate and in this one. But, you know, already, and Councillor Dean Monk touched on this, you've got the example of Huddersfield, who are taking on the responsibility for providing new toilets in Huddersfield, and, you know, their increase is by 0.6% this year, so I don't know how they do it, but presumably the payment will have to come later. But, you know, there's an example of Parish Council that's risen to that challenge. And, you know, not forgetting Ashbourne Town Council, which sort of took on the TIC role, and, you know, I think we've forgotten about that now, but there it is running away effectively. So, you know, there are many examples already out there where town and parish councils have risen to this challenge and may not continue to do so. So, I think we rightly say we should continue to work with them and to be grateful for what has been done so far and what I'm sure is going to be done in the future. Some are clearly better than others. Others might not even realise the problem, and I think that's up to us to explain it to them. But, you know, I think we ought to support this budget, and I hope as many members as they can will.
Thank you very much. Be moved and seconded. Can we now proceed to the recorded vote?
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Botham. Councillor Bull. Councillor Martin Barefoot. Councillor Sue Barefoot. Councillor Catt. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Anne Elliott. Councillor Flitter. Councillor Froggatt. Councillor Furness. Councillor Hill. Councillor Hobson. Councillor Horton. Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Millward. Councillor Monks. Councillor Morley. Councillor Pawley. Councillor Purdy. Councillor Irene Ratcliffe. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe. Councillor Rose. Councillor Salt. Councillor Shirley. Councillor Slack. Councillor Statham. Councillor Stevens. Councillor Swindle. Councillor Tibbenham. Councillor Tilbrook. And Councillor Wilde. 32 in favour with 1 against.
32 in favour with 1 against. Move on now to item 12, council tax setting 2017-18. Can I hand over to the Head of Resources?
Thank you, Chair. This is a technical report that follows the council tax that you've set in the previous report. It also brings in the council taxes of the major preceptors and the town and parish councils. The outcome is an average increase in the council tax of 3.5% for the whole bill, including county, fire, police and the average parish council. The appendices to the report show the individual council taxes for each parish council.
That's what we do, Chairman.
Whoever's a seconder? Councillor Catt. Any questions or further debate? Or would you like to move straight to the recorded vote? Yeah. We'll move straight to the vote.
Councillor Atkin.
For.
Councillor Botham. Councillor Bull. Councillor Martin Barefoot. Councillor Sue Barefoot. Councillor Catt. Councillor Chapman. Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Flitter. Councillor Froggatt. Councillor Furness. Councillor Hill. Councillor Hobson. Councillor Horton. Councillor Jenkins. Councillor Millward. Councillor Monks. Councillor Morley. Councillor Pawley. Councillor Purdy. Councillor Irene Ratcliffe. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe. Councillor Rose. Councillor Salt. Councillor Shirley. Councillor Slack. Councillor Statham. Councillor Stevens. Councillor Swindle. Councillor Tibbenham. Councillor Tilbrook. And Councillor Wilde.
Unanimous. Okay, can we move on now to agenda item 13, Corporate Plan 2017-18. Mr. Capes, I think, is going to introduce that paper.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. We're doing 3 things in this report. One is reporting on your current year's corporate plan targets. You set 13 targets that you wanted to achieve this year, and 11 out of 13 of them are on the way to being achieved. Some not on time, but they're on the way to being achieved. There's 2 that are not, and as you'll see, they both relate to the same issue, which is markets, and my colleague Mr. Watts is going to be presenting a report to members later this month, asking you to take some difficult decisions on markets. Our targets for the coming year are also to be set. They are similar in many respects to the this year's targets, except that in some areas we have lowered the targets to an extent to reflect the tightening situation that we're in. And in that regard, the third thing we're asking you to do is to review the corporate plan during the year in concert with the members' workshop, which you've already agreed, in light of our tightening financial position.
Councillor Wilde.
Thank you. I'm happy to move this report. Priorities in the corporate plan continue to benefit and to be important to our residents. Targets going forward into 2018 I think are realistic given the circumstances we face, but I think it's important to note that a number of our small businesses have gained £700,000 in grants thanks to the work that's done by our team and the continuing work going forward with Rob's team and the housing. That's good news, so I'm happy to move this.
Thank you. Councillor Statham.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was about to second it because I think it's a super report. I will be supporting it, and I'd just like to comment that I think we're privileged because what we've got in Derbyshire Dales is one of the lowest unemployment rates per capita for a district like this, and also one of the lowest average wage earners. And what it tells you is that we've got a responsibility to a lot of people who want to work very hard and don't expect to earn very, very much money. And I think we're very privileged to be in a situation to be able to put this sort of report together to help them, those who want to start businesses, because the starting a business is just not me being employed, it's me employing other people. And I would like to congratulate Mr. Capes and his team on the work they've done in facilitating and enabling people to access grants to grow businesses. It's a super report, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Flitter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, my question was on the same vein. In actual fact, it's great that we can get so many local businesses started in the area because so many people are going self-employed now as a means of making a living. But knowing what we've discussed tonight and seeing the problems that we may have in the future, will we still be able to give that same support? Because not all businesses make it, some fail along the way, and they do need extra support. Are we going to be in a position where we can continue with that level of support that we have today?
Chairman, to partially answer that, in terms of the business support and the business advice that we provide, part of it comes from Council's resources and part of it comes from funding that we've attracted from the local enterprise partnerships, and that's in place for another 2 years. So for the medium term, we are going to be able to provide that level of support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mike Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with an observation. I know, incidentally, that my colleague is going to, in all probability, ask a specific question allied to the same subject. The two areas that are struggling in terms of performance targets are clearly the street markets or the town markets as opposed to specialist markets like farmers' markets. I understand that Ashbourne, Thursday Market I think it is, has closed for 3 months and then it's likely to reopen having undergone some revamp and in all likelihood be subject to some evaluation. A question allied to this is on the basis of that, and then indeed on thoughts about the other markets and how they're struggling. And I note incidentally that we have had market officers come and go who have done their valiant best to bring a bit of sparkle back into these markets. Is there likely to be in the future a strategic review of these markets in the same way that we're subjecting public conveniences to a review process?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be bringing a report on the 16th of March, Councillor Ratcliffe, on the review of the markets and the work that we've done to date. It includes all the markets, Ashbourne, Worksworth, Bakewell and Matlock, and that will be presented on the 16th of March.
Thank you very much, Ash. Councillor Slack?
Thank you, Chair. To come back to markets, I've been involved with markets for many years, and as time has gone on, as I said about these shops, charity shops in town, a lot of out-of-town shopping is done now, and if you're not in that area, you don't really gain. And the markets, in some markets, are such as Aston Market on the marketplace now is isolated, really. Most of the trade in Ashbourne has moved down to where the shopping centres are, so forth. And we've got to realise this is a fact. We've got to where we are. We've said this before, and we've got to realise the fact that probably move the markets to where it's more a busier position. So when I was on the market a few years ago, we did come up with this proposition to move the market down to where Waitrose is now in that area. And I realise that this is going to come about in the next few months, so that's very good, and I welcome that. But we've got to, as I say, move. And a few years ago, we've had a market review, not too long ago, about 3-4 years ago. We reviewed all the markets, we put a lot of these propositions to the market traders, and we didn't get full agreement at Ashbourne, unfortunately, at that time, to move the market. But now, as things have deteriorated again, the market traders realise that if they want to survive, they've got to go where it's better. So I welcome this move on Thursdays, especially as a trial, to relocate Ashbourne Market to a better position. And also in other markets, and Wordsworth, really, to be perfectly honest, it would be far, far better down near the Memorial Hall, where it's flatter, safer for pedestrians and people to come along the shop, where on the slope, and it would release the car park for parking. So it would be twofold. The District Council would gain, and the public would gain. Just get the agreement of the Town Council to go along with this, and we would have a better situation in Wordsworth Market. And many of the markets, Bakewell's quite successful, and I hope it carries on being successful. And Matlock Market, in the review, it was put, what's already gone up to move the market to the top of the park, it was put in that review. And unfortunately, we didn't do it. An outside body came along and did it on a Wednesday. Well, the opportunity is there on a Friday, which was market day in Matlock, to bring that market to the top of the park and have another successful market in Matlock. So I think there's a lot can be done on markets, and it's, we should look at it and review it again and really put it into action this time. Some of that review's buried now, and it wants resurrecting, really. So this is it'll save the council money, so if it's saving the council money, we should look at it seriously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think we look forward to Ash's report. Councillor Finesse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, first of all, I express my appreciation to Steve and his team for the brilliant work they're doing on creating new businesses. I see that for myself, and it is greatly appreciated. That's why I'm a bit puzzled by the figures here, because it's showing Q3 status as 14 and the target for the year at 33, which would suggest that should be in red. And I'm sure that shouldn't be the case. So I wonder whether perhaps the target of 33 was a bit too ambitious.
Chairman, that's partly why we've reset the target to 25 for next year. To be a bit technical about it, the actual requirements behind the funding that came on later on during the year. So the new business contract is delivered by Growing Rural Enterprise Limited, a Sudbury-based firm actually, but they only started partway through the year, not near the start. So those businesses will be started, but they started later, so it's a bit of a time lag there.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you very much. I haven't got anyone else down to talk. Would Councillor Wild like to say anything further? Or no, we'll move straight to the vote. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 14, Treasury Management Strategy Statement 2017-18. Can I hand over to the Head of Resources again?
Thank you, Chair. Members will be aware that earlier this year, or in the autumn, we appointed new Treasury Management Advisors at Arling Close, and they've assisted with this report. And those of you who can remember last year's report might notice this one's got a slightly different style and layout. Arling Close also provided a workshop for members in January, and those who were there will remember that one of the slides we put up was a benchmarking exercise showing that this council didn't perform very well in terms of achieving the best return on its investments. As a result, we've worked with Arling Close to review our investment strategy, and the strategy proposed in section 1.4 of this report reflects that. The table 2 in paragraph 145 shows the proposed list of counterparties and limits for 2017-18, which is a lot more extensive than our previous investment strategy. I'd also draw your attention to the note beneath table 2 regarding the council's own bank and the funding requirements that we need there. The counterparties and limits are in the table are more extensive, but Arling Close assure us that they offer greater yields while giving us the same or better levels of security. Arling Close also recommend that we invest our underlying reserves for longer periods because this should achieve a greater rate of return. But in order to do that, we might need to do some short-term borrowing from time to time, which is something we haven't done in previous years. Therefore, the proposed borrowing strategy, which is set out in paragraph 134 of the report, reflects that and advocates the use of some short-term borrowing where it's cost-effective to do so. This should reduce the overall Treasury risk. And the sources of borrowing are set out in section 1.3 of the report. The Treasury management indicators in the report show how we intend to manage performance over the year. And finally, I'd just like to tell members that a recent internal audit review of the Treasury management function assessed the controls as good and made no recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we move to debate and questions, if there are any? Councillor Stevens.
Right, thank you. Well, I think congratulations to the team on the good report that we've received. It's always difficult when finance is involved, and having worked for quite a considerable number of years in banking, I'm well aware of speculative investments and all the rest. It's very difficult, and particularly with times as they are now, knowing what interest rates are going to do, be it locally or worldwide, both on investments and on borrowing. And I think those of us that attended the workshop that Callum organised with Arlington appreciated what Cecilia Booth presented to us. It put into very easy, well, to me, easy detail. Perhaps I appreciated it more than members who aren't as into finance detail as me, but I hope that it gave members an insight into what they were then able to read in this report, because it does follow through with the interest rates, where we're going. And there is a saying, it's a very old saying, speculate to accumulate. Now, I'm not saying we should rush out and borrow whatever, but I think if the need rises, we do need that option to be able to do that. If it can cover a short term, then that is good. So I'm happy to move this report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Finesse?
Yes, and I'm happy to second it. I echo the Councillor Stevens' statements, particularly about the workshop, because I also found that extremely useful and learned quite a lot from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or contributions to the debate? No? Okay. Can we move straight to the vote, please? All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Now we move to the sealing of the documents. Thank you. Very quick off the mark. Thank you. Great. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And can I thank also all the officers who have worked very hard, and particularly Karen, who's taken such a key part of this meeting. Thank you very much indeed. Safe journey back.
Can we collect them at 8 o'clock? Yeah.